Hello and welcome to Lost Love Chronicles.
Dear listeners, before we get started, drop a quick hi in the comments and let us know where you're tuning in from. Now let's start with the story. I stood there in our dimly lit dining room, the smell of roasted chicken and garlic mashed potatoes filling the air. My heart pounded with a mix of hope and nerves. It was our 15th anniversary, and I'd spent the whole day planning this dinner to remind Corinne how much we still had together, how much I still loved her despite everything. The kids, well, just Margot now since she was the only one still at home, were supposed to be part of this too. A family moment. I'd even gone out and bought a small gift. Nothing flashy, just something meaningful. My hand shook a little as I set the tiny box on the table in front of Corinne, wrapped in simple silver paper with a red ribbon I'd tied myself. I'd practiced what I'd say all morning. 15 years, babe, I began, voice a little unsteady. We've made it through a lot. This is for you. Before I could even get the rest out, she glanced at the box, then at me, and rolled her eyes so hard I could almost hear them creak. You're still jobless, she said, her voice sharp like a knife cutting through the warm air. You couldn't even afford a decent gift, could you? I froze, my mouth half open, the words I'd rehearsed dying in my throat. I wanted to tell her she was wrong, that this wasn't about money, that I'd poured my heart into this night. But then Margot piped up from across the table, her voice dripping with contempt. We don't need your cheap box, Dad. Take it and get out. She didn't even look up from her phone, just flicked her fingers like I was some annoying fly buzzing around her perfect life. I stared at them both, my wife, my daughter, feeling like a stranger in my own home. The candles flickered on the table, casting shadows that danced across their faces, and for a second, I couldn't move. My chest tightened. I thought about yelling, about flipping the table, about demanding they at least open the damn thing and see what I'd done for them. But instead, something else came over me. I laughed, not a big, loud laugh, just a quiet chuckle that slipped out before I could stop it. It was soft, almost to myself, but it echoed in that heavy silence like a firecracker. They looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Corinne's eyebrows shot up, her lips tightening. Margot finally glanced up from her screen, eyes narrowed. You sure about that? I asked, keeping my voice steady, almost playful. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossing over my chest, watching them squirm just a little. They didn't know what was in that box. They didn't know what I'd been hiding, what I'd been building while they wrote me off, tossed me aside like a coat no longer in season. Corinne shoved the box back toward me with the back of her hand like it was trash. Get out, she said, her tone flat, final, rehearsed. Margot nodded, that same smirk spreading across her face like she'd just won something. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I just stood, grabbed the box, tucked it under my arm, and walked to the door without another word. The cool night air hit my face as I stepped outside. A second later, I heard the lock click behind me. My car was parked in the driveway, the same beat-up sedan I'd been driving for years. I slid into the driver's seat, the box resting on my lap. I didn't open it. I didn't need to. I knew what was inside. Proof of everything they'd thrown away. I started the engine and pulled out, the street lights blurring past me as I drove into the night, the warmth of the house, the smell of dinner, and the sting of their words fading behind me. A week later, my phone started buzzing. Corinne's name flashed on the screen. Then Margot's. Over and over. Voicemails piled up. Texts too. But I didn't answer. I just sat there in my borrowed room at Uncle Ronan's place, sipping coffee, staring at the little box on the table in front of me. They'd figure it out soon enough. They'd realize what they'd pushed away. And when they did, I'd be ready, not with anger, not with tears, but with the quiet strength I'd been holding on to all along. I leaned back in the chair, letting the phone vibrate again, and smiled to myself. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. 10 years ago, life felt like a dream I didn't want to wake up from. And I can still see it so clearly when I close my eyes. I was standing in the kitchen of our old house. The one with the creaky floors and the big bay window. That old house still lives in my memory like a photograph warmed by time. I was standing in the kitchen, flipping pancakes while Margot giggled at the table, her little hands sticky with syrup. She was 6 then, all wide eyes and messy pigtails, her cheeks pink from laughing too hard. Daddy, make his ears bigger, she said, bouncing in her seat as I tried my best to pour the batter into a proper Mickey Mouse. I laughed, not even trying to hide how much I loved it. You got it, boss. One extra large-eared Mickey coming right up. She clapped her syrupy hands together, smearing stickiness across the table, and I didn't care. Her happiness was everything. Corinne would come in a few minutes later, still in her pajamas, her hair a wild mess from sleep. She'd wrap her arms around me from behind, her chin resting on my shoulder, lips brushing my neck. Smells good, she'd murmur, pressing a kiss just below my ear. You're spoiling her, you know. But there was no real protest in her voice. It was warm, full of love, and the kind of easy affection that made every morning feel like a promise. Back then, I was somebody. I was running my own engineering firm, small, but growing. I was bringing in contracts that paid for that house, the vacations, the little luxuries we never had to think twice about. I'd built it all from scratch. Late nights sketching designs, early mornings pitching to clients. It was hard work, but it felt good, really good to see Corinne proud of me, to hear Margot bragging to her friends. My dad builds bridges, she'd say, chest puffed out like she was describing a superhero. I thought we were unbreakable. The three of us. A team against the world. But then the deal went bad. One big project, a bridge redesign for the city. I'd sunk everything into it. Every dollar, every hope, all my time. It was supposed to be the one that elevated the firm. But the city pulled out at the last-minute budget cuts, they said, and just like that, everything unraveled. Creditors came knocking. Bills piled up like storm clouds. I had to let my team go, one by one, until I was sitting in an empty office, just me and a silent phone that never rang. Eventually, I sold the company. Not for what it was worth. Not even close. Just enough to keep us afloat. Barely. But the damage was done. Corinne's warmth faded first. Slowly at first, so subtly I didn't notice until it was gone. She stopped hugging me in the mornings. Stopped asking about my day. Her words got shorter, colder. You need to figure this out, she said one evening, arms crossed in the hallway, not even looking at me. Her voice clipped and hard, like I was a broken appliance she was tired of dealing with. I tried. God, I tried. I took freelance gigs where I could. Fixed cars in the garage for neighbors. Even signed up to drive for one of those rideshare apps. But it was never enough. Never the life we used to have. The house went into foreclosure. We moved into a smaller place, a rental with thin walls, a leaky roof, and neighbors who fought loud and late. Margot was 10 by then, and I noticed her pulling away too. She didn't giggle as much. Wouldn't sit with me in the kitchen anymore. One night, I brought her a book, something we used to love, one of those fantasy stories we'd read together before bed. She rolled her eyes, pulling her blanket over her head. I'm not a baby, Dad, she muttered. I stood there in the doorway, book in hand, trying not to let it sting too much. I laughed it off. All right. Guess I'll have to read it myself then. But deep down, something tugged at me. Still, I told myself it was just growing up. But it wasn't just growing up. She started copying Corinne, parroting her complaints. Why can't we have nice things anymore? Margot would ask, her tone sharp in a way a 10-year-old's shouldn't be. I'd catch them whispering sometimes, huddled together in the kitchen or in the hallway, glancing at me like I was some stranger who didn't belong. I kept hustling, picking up odd jobs, anything to keep the lights on, food on the table. But in their eyes, I wasn't the man I used to be. They didn't see the hours I spent trying to rebuild, the nights I stayed awake staring at the ceiling, wondering how the hell I was going to fix everything. They saw the past, the fancy life I'd given them before, the big house, the trips to the coast, the clothes, the restaurants. They loved that. Not me. I'd come home from a long day, hands scraped and greasy from fixing someone's engine, face smudged with dirt, and Corinne wouldn't even look up from her phone. You smell like oil, she'd say, wrinkling her nose like I was something foul. And Margot would giggle beside her like it was some private joke between them. I'd just stand there in the doorway, holding my keys, feeling smaller every time, wondering where my family had gone. I tried talking to Corinne once. Late at night, when Margot was asleep and the house was finally quiet. We can get through this, I told her, sitting next to her on the couch. I reached for her hand, hesitant, but hopeful. She pulled away, slow and deliberate, eyes cold. You lost everything, Tom, she said flatly. What's there to get through? That hit harder than any notice from a creditor. Worse than losing the firm. Because in that moment, I realized she didn't believe in me anymore. Not even a little. After that, Margot stopped asking for pancakes. She stopped calling me daddy. She'd just walk past me in the hallway, earbuds in, eyes on her phone, like I was invisible. Still, I kept going, scraping by, pushing myself, telling myself it had to get better, that eventually, they'd see I was still fighting. For them. But deep down, I knew something had broken. Something I couldn't fix with hard work or late nights. They didn't want the man I was now. They wanted the version of me that came with shiny things and no worries. And I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Like an itch I couldn't scratch. It had been gnawing at me for months. It started small. Corinne coming home later than usual. Her heels clicking on the floor after midnight. It's work, she'd say, shrugging off her coat. The firm's pushing hard on the campaign. I've got deadlines. And I'd nod, trying to believe her. Trying to trust. Okay, just don't burn yourself out, I'd say, forcing a smile. But she'd barely glance at me. Mutter something under her breath about timelines or pressure before disappearing into the bedroom. I wanted to trust her. God, I did. For years, I held on to that hope like it was a lifeline. But the signs, The signs kept piling up. Little things that didn't add up. Her perfume, for one. Some nights it lingered longer than it should, have a sharp floral scent that clung to the air like it didn't belong. It wasn't the perfume I bought her for Christmas years ago. That scent was softer, familiar. This one, it was bold, almost aggressive. Like someone else had walked through our home and left a trail behind. I asked her about it once, careful not to sound accusing. New perfume, I said, trying to sound casual. She barely looked up. Oh, just a sample. A client gave it to me, she said, brushing past me like it was nothing. But it stuck with me. That smell. That lie. Then there was Margot. My little girl who wasn't so little anymore. 16 now. Tall, guarded, sharp-tongued. She'd always been close to her mom, always shared their little secrets, but lately it felt different. Worse. She'd roll her eyes when I asked how school was. Mutter under her breath when I tried to connect. You wouldn't get it, Dad, she said once, not even looking up from her phone, her voice flat and full of that smug teenage distance, but it cut deeper than it used to. It felt personal. She texted constantly, fingers flying across the screen like her life depended on it. And if I walked into the room, she'd tilt the phone just slightly, angle it away from me like I didn't deserve to see, like I was the outsider. Sometimes she'd whisper into it, giggling under her breath, glancing toward the hallway as if making sure I wasn't too close. It made my stomach twist. I told myself I was being paranoid, that losing the company had made me suspicious, bitter, that I was just seeing shadows in places where there was nothing. I wanted to believe that, but then I saw it. The message that cracked everything wide open. It was a Sunday afternoon. Corinne had run out to the store, said she was grabbing a few things for dinner, left her laptop open on the kitchen counter like she didn't have a care in the world. I wasn't snooping. I swear I wasn't. I just walked in, thirsty, reaching for a glass of water, when the screen lit up with a notification. A message. Just one line. Dinner at our place next time. Can't wait to see you again. Garrett. My heart stopped. Then it started pounding. So loud I could hear it in my ears. My hand tightened around the glass. I couldn't move. I just stood there, staring at those words like they were written in fire. Garrett. Her boss. Tall. Slick. Always in those goddamn tailored suits. The guy who'd show up at the holiday parties with that smug grin and a fresh haircut, shaking everyone's hand like he owned the place. I'd met him a few times, smiled through gritted teeth while he charmed the room, made jokes that had Corinne laughing too hard. Even when I was still on top, he made me feel small. And now he was in my life. In my house. In my wife's head. I clicked the email thread. Stupid, maybe, but I had to know. I had to see it with my own eyes. And it was all there. Months of messages. Flirty at first emojis, inside jokes. Then bolder. Plans. Meetings. Lunch tomorrow. Missed you last night. He doesn't suspect a thing. That last one hit me like a punch to the gut. He was me. I was the fool who didn't see it coming. The man working late nights, busting his back to keep the lights on while his wife was doing this. I closed the laptop, my hands slick with sweat. Sat down hard on the kitchen stool. My breath came shallow, like I'd been winded. Corinne wasn't just cheating. She was building a whole new life. Without me. And Margot, she wasn't just pulling away like some moody teen. She was being pulled, molded, trained. Every eye roll, every time she smirked when her mother brushed me off, every cold shoulder, I saw it for what it was now. It wasn't rebellion. It was indoctrination. Corinne wanted out, and she was making damn sure Margot hated me enough to go with her. To leave me behind like yesterday's trash. Then I heard it. The front door. Keys jingling. I stood. The stool scraped back against the tile. She came in with a grocery bag in one hand, phone in the other. She froze when she saw me. Her eyes went to the counter, to the laptop, then to my face. What's wrong with you? She asked, her voice light, casual, like nothing was up. I stared at her. That voice. That perfume. That calm. Like she hadn't just detonated our entire life. I wanted to scream. To throw the laptop across the room. To shout why? Why now? Why us? But I didn't. I just looked at her. Really looked. And all I saw was a stranger. Her expression blank, guarded. Not a flicker of guilt. Nothing, I said, voice low, steady. Just thinking. She shrugged like it was nothing. Walked right past me. That damn perfume trailing behind her. And in that moment, I knew. She wasn't mine anymore. Neither of them were. I couldn't let it sit there. Couldn't let it rot inside me like some poison. So I made up my mind. I'd confront her that night. The house was quiet. Too quiet. That suffocating kind of silence that feels thick in your lungs. Margot was upstairs, probably glued to her phone. Corinne was on the couch, flipping through a magazine like it was any other night. I stood in the doorway, watching her. Her perfect hair, manicured nails, the way she crossed her legs like she owned the world. And inside me, something boiled. Anger, sadness, everything. I'd seen the emails. I knew about Garrett. And I couldn't pretend anymore. We need to talk, I said, my voice rougher than I meant it to be. She didn't even look up at first. Just turned a page in her magazine, like I was some background noise interrupting her evening. "What now, Tom?" she said finally, glancing up. Her eyes were cold, impatient, like I was wasting her time. I took a step closer. My hands clenched at my sides. I was really trying not to lose it. "I know about Garrett," I said, straight out. No stalling, no lead up, no dancing around it. "I saw the messages. You're not even trying to hide it anymore, are you?" For a second, just 1 second, she froze. Her fingers hovered over the magazine like she was deciding whether to play dumb, cry, lie something. But then she laughed. Sharp, mean. It was the kind of laugh that makes your skin crawl, like you've just been made the punchline of a joke you didn't know you were in. "Oh, you finally figured it out," she said, tossing the magazine onto the coffee table with a careless flick. She leaned back against the couch like she was settling in. "Took you long enough." I stood there stunned. My mouth was dry. My thoughts were all static. I'd expected rage, tears something. But this smug calm, it knocked the breath out of me. "So that's it?" I asked, my voice cracking. "You're just done with me? With us?" She smirked, crossed her arms. And for the first time, I saw it fully. This wasn't the woman I married. This was a stranger. Someone wearing my wife's face. "You think I want to spend my life with a has-been?" she said, every syllable sharp as glass. "Garrett takes care of me. He respects me. He's got a future. Something you haven't had in years." I opened my mouth, searching for something to throw back anything. I wanted to tell her I'd been trying, that I'd never stopped fighting for this family, for us. But before I could speak, I heard footsteps on the stairs. Margot. She stopped at the bottom, arms at her sides, her face blank. Her hair was tied back, just like when she was 10 and insisted on doing it herself for school picture day. God, I remembered that. But she didn't say a word. She just looked at me, then crossed her arms, mirroring her mom. And just like that, I knew where she stood. She didn't even have to say it. Corinne didn't stop. If anything, Margot's presence made her bolder. "This is his house now," she said, her chin lifting slightly, her voice calm and cruel. She nodded toward the walls, the same walls I'd painted myself, sweat dripping down my back in the middle of August. The couch I'd hauled in from the truck, one awkward corner bump at a time. The dining table I'd saved up for. "Garrett's moving in soon," she said, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "If you want to stay, you better start contributing something useful. Rent, maybe, since you can't do much else." My head spun. My stomach turned. It felt like the floor was falling out from under me. His house. This was my home. Our home. The place I'd swore to keep even after the company tanked, and now she was handing it over like junk mail to some slick scumsucker who'd probably never lifted a damn finger for her the way I had. I looked at Margot again. Really looked, searching her face for any sign of that kid who used to run into my arms after school, who used to hug me goodnight, whisper, "Love you, Daddy," like it meant the world. But she just stared back. Her eyes were hard, distant, like I wasn't even standing there. "You agree with this?" I asked her, my voice breaking just a little, despite how hard I tried to hold it together. She shrugged, barely moved her shoulders. "Whatever Mom says," she muttered. That was it. The knife twisting in deeper, smooth and practiced. They'd teamed up, decided I was dead weight, disposable, nothing but the guy who used to be useful once. I could have fought, could have screamed, told them how I built this life for them, with blood and bone. How I loved them through every failure, every bounce check, every cold night when I worked a side gig just to keep the heat on. But standing there, Corinne smirking like she'd won, and Margot looking through me like I wasn't even a ghost, I saw the truth. They didn't care. Hadn't for a long time. I took a breath. Deep. Slow. Felt my fists loosen. And something shifted inside me. The anger didn't burn anymore, it froze. Turned cold. Sharp. Not a wound now, but a tool. A blade I could carry in my back pocket. "Fine," I said. My voice steady now. Low. Quiet. Corinne raised an eyebrow. Like she was waiting for me to grovel. Beg. Cry. Break. I didn't. I just nodded. Slow. Deliberate. "You want me gone? I'm gone. But you're going to regret this." She laughed again. Not surprised. Not scared. Just dismissive. Waved me off like a cranky customer at the salon. "Sure," she said. "Whatever helps you sleep." But I wasn't bluffing. I turned and walked out of the room, my boots heavy on the hardwood. The hallway echoed like I was already a memory. I didn't look back. Upstairs, I grabbed a duffel bag from the back of the closet. Stuffed it with clothes, my toothbrush, a few framed pictures I couldn't bring myself to leave behind. The house felt colder now. Not just from the tension, but like it knew I didn't belong there anymore. I wasn't thinking about them. Not anymore. I was thinking about what came next. They thought I was finished. A washed-up nobody with nothing left to offer. They were wrong. I'd been down before. Hell, I'd been lower than this. And I'd climb my way back up. This time, I'd do it smarter. Quieter. No big declarations, no last-ditch pleas. And when they finally realized what they'd thrown away, I'd be the one laughing. I sat on the edge of the lumpy guest bed at Uncle Ronan's place, the room smelling faintly of dust and old cologne. The little box from the anniversary dinner rested in my hands still unopened, and my mind drifted back to something Corinne never knew about, something no one did, back when the company hadn't gone under yet, back when I still had a bit of cash and a lot of hope. I'd made a move that seemed crazy at the time. My old college buddy Sahil, sharp as hell, always running a dozen ideas at once, came to me one night all jittery and excited, practically vibrating out of his chair. "This is it, Tom," he said, eyes wide over a couple of warm beers at that dive bar on 14th. "It's a game changer. AI software for small businesses. Nobody's doing it like this. It's lean, scalable, practical. We're building something real." He leaned in close like someone might overhear, even though the jukebox was blasting Aerosmith. "I just need seed money to get it off the ground, just to push us out of the garage and into the market." I remember staring down into my beer, feeling the pull between common sense and something deeper, hope maybe. My firm had been doing well then. We were pulling in steady contracts, coasting even. I should have said no, but I didn't. I wrote him a check for $80,000, most of my personal savings. Didn't even tell Corinne. She'd have freaked, called it reckless, a total gamble. And maybe she'd have been right. But there was a look in Sahil's eyes I hadn't seen in years, this fire, this certainty. I trusted that more than spreadsheets. After that, life happened. The firm went under. Bills piled up. Margot hit her teenage years like a storm. Corinne got colder. And Sahil's project? It just faded into the background. I figured it had fizzled like most startups do. Wasn't about to go digging through old bank statements to mourn the loss. Then, 2 years ago, my phone rang. "Tom, you still alive?" Sahil's voice came through, laughing like nothing had changed. I could practically hear the grin stretching across his face. "You're not going to believe this, man. We're going public." I'd been hunched over a busted lawn mower in a neighbor's garage at the time, doing the job for $20 and a six-pack. Grease up to my elbows. I nearly dropped the damn phone. Turns out the company hadn't just survived, it had taken off. Quiet at first, under the radar. But then like a rocket, they built an AI tool that small businesses snapped up like candy. Bookkeeping, scheduling, marketing automated, simple, affordable. It spread fast. When they IPO'd, my shares forgotten in some digital drawer shot up. I didn't tell anyone, not even Uncle Ronan. I just kept reinvesting, watching it climb, quietly. While Corinne rolled her eyes at me and Margot looked through me like fog glass, I watched those numbers grow. Last month, I finally cashed out a chunk. Just a portion, but it was enough. Enough to make me a multimillionaire. More money than I ever dreamed of back when I was skipping meals to pay the mortgage. I moved it into a new account separate from the joint one Corinne still dipped into without asking, still acting like I was the one scraping by. And I started planning. That box I'd handed her at the anniversary dinner? It wasn't some trinket. Wasn't jewelry or some last-ditch romantic gesture. Inside was a folder, clean, crisp, official. Documentation for a new company I'd set up with Sahil's help. My name on the letterhead. A luxury vacation deed for a beach house I'd bought outright, no mortgage, no strings. And a black credit card with no limit. Tied to my new fortune. I wanted to show her. To say, I'm back. Better than ever. We can start over. But she didn't even open it. Just shoved the box away like it was garbage. Like I was garbage. And Margot backed her up. Didn't even blink. Just stood there, arms crossed, silent and smug, like she was guarding the throne from an intruder. Kicked me out of my own life. Now, sitting in Ronan's spare room, the box felt heavier than it should have. I flipped it open and stared at the papers inside, the LLC documents, the deed, the slick black card catching the low light of the desk lamp like a blade. I ran my thumb over the card, feeling the smooth surface, the embossed numbers, the weight of what it meant. It wasn't just money. It was power. A second chance. Something I'd built from nothing, in silence, while they looked right through me. I thought about Corinne's sneer. The way she waved me off, like a stray mutt. The way Margot smirked, smug in her borrowed confidence. They had no idea. No clue what I'd been hiding. What I'd become while they were busy writing me off like a footnote. I could have gone back that night. Could have stormed in, dropped the card on the table, made it all dramatic. "You think Garrett's your ticket? Look what I've got." But I didn't. I closed the box. Set it on the nightstand. Leaned back against the headboard, springs creaking under me. The silence in Ronan's room was thick, but it didn't press on me. It held me. Revenge, real revenge, wasn't about waving a wad of cash or rubbing their faces in it. It was about waiting, letting them figure it out on their own. Watching them squirm when Garrett's promises turned out to be just that, promises. When the bills started bouncing. When Margot realized her perfect little life wasn't as solid as she thought. I didn't need to yell. I didn't need to fight. I just needed time. I stood up, walked to the window. The street outside was quiet. Suburban hush. The moon hung low, swollen and heavy over the trees. My hands weren't shaking anymore. My chest didn't ache. For the first time in years, I felt steady, like the ground beneath me had come back after being gone so long. They'd throw me out, sure, but they'd also set me free. And that box, it wasn't just a gift. It was proof. Proof I wasn't the man they thought I was. Not anymore. I stood in the kitchen that night, the night of the anniversary dinner. The roast chicken sitting on the table, cooling now. Potatoes getting stiff. Candles burning low, dripping wax onto the cloth I'd ironed just for this. I'd wanted it to be perfect. I wanted a chance to show Corinne that we could still fix things, that I wasn't the failure she'd been seeing all this time. My hands were sweaty as I slid the little box across the table toward her, the one with the papers, the deed, the card, everything I'd been hiding. Happy anniversary, I said, my voice softer than I meant it to be, hoping she'd catch the weight behind it. She barely glanced at the box. Her lips curled into that familiar sneer. What's this supposed to be? She said, pushing it back toward me without even touching the ribbon. Before I could answer, Margot chimed in, her voice sharp and bored. It's probably junk. Just leave Dad alone. I looked at them, my wife, my daughter, and felt the air shift, like the room was closing in on me. I'd planned to tell them everything. To open the box and lay it all out, the money, the company, the life I could give them now. But they didn't give me a chance. Corinne stood up, brushing her hands like she was done with me for good. Get out, she said, flat and cold. Margot smirked, crossing her arms like she'd been waiting for this moment. I opened my mouth to argue, to say something, anything. But then the front door creaked open. There he was. Garrett. Tall, polished, his suit jacket slung over his shoulder like he owned the place. He strolled in, grinning, and dropped his keys on the counter, my counter, as if it was already his house. Evening, folks, he said, voice smooth, and slid an arm around Corinne's waist right in front of me. She leaned into him, laughing a little. He grabbed my wine glass, the one I'd poured for myself, and filled it from the bottle I'd bought. Cheers, he said, raising it to me with a wink before taking a sip. I stood there, rooted to the spot, watching him drink from my glass, his hand on my wife and daughter, smirking like it was some big win. The room spun for a second, and I felt this hot, jagged thing rise in my chest, anger, hurt, humiliation, all mixed together. I could have lunged at him, smashing the glass out of his hand, demanding they all listen. But I didn't. Something clicked instead, something cold and clear. I looked at Corinne, her eyes locked on Garrett like I wasn't even there, and Margot, tapping away on her phone, probably texting her friends about how pathetic I was. They didn't deserve the truth. Not yet. I picked up the box, tucked it under my arm, and forced a smile. Small. Tight. All right, I said, my voice steady, almost light. Corinne raised an eyebrow, like she expected me to beg, but I just turned and headed for the door. Garrett called after me, his tone dripping with fake pity. Take care, Tom. I heard Corinne laugh again as I stepped outside. The night air hit me hard, crisp and sharp, and I walked to my car, the gravel crunching under my boots. I slid into the driver's seat, the box on my lap, and sat there for a minute staring at the house. Our house. My house. Lights glowing through the windows. I could still hear them inside, their voices faint, probably joking about how I'd slunk off like a kicked dog. I thought about going back in, unloading everything, telling them I was a millionaire now, that I'd outdone Garrett 10 times over. But I didn't. I started the engine, the rumble filling the silence, and pulled out of the driveway. The house shrank in the rearview mirror. That smile stayed on my face, not big, not loud, just there. They'd remember it later. That quiet little grin when they realized what they'd lost. I wasn't running. I wasn't broken. I was done playing their game. The road stretched out ahead, dark and empty, and I felt lighter than I had in years. They thought they'd won, kicking me out, replacing me with that smug scum-sucker. But they didn't know what I had in that box. What I'd been building while they laughed. I turned up the radio, some old rock song buzzing through the speakers, and let the miles roll by. Uncle Ronan's place wasn't far. I'd crash there tonight, figure out the rest tomorrow. For now, I just drove. The weight of the box was a reminder not of failure, but of power. They'd changed everything that night. Sure, but not the way they thought. They'd set me loose, and I was ready to rise. I woke up the next morning on Uncle Ronan's old couch, the springs digging into my back, the smell of strong coffee pulling me out of a restless sleep. My duffel bag sat in the corner, the little box perched on top like a silent promise. I could still hear Corinne's voice from last night, get out, echoing in my head. Ronan shuffled in, his gray hair sticking up, carrying a mug in each hand. Told you she was poison, he said, gruff as always, handing me the coffee. I took it, the heat seeping into my palms, and nodded. Yeah, you did, I said, my voice scratchy from the night. He didn't push, just sat across from me in his beat-up recliner, sipping his drink, letting me think. I'd crashed here after driving away from the house. The image of Garrett pouring wine into my glass burned into my brain. But sitting there with the morning light creeping through the blinds, I didn't feel broken. I felt awake. Really awake for the first time in years. Ronan's place was small, cluttered with old tools and fishing gear, but it was solid, a lifeline I could grab onto. "What's the plan, kid?" he asked, eyeing me over his mug. I leaned back, the coffee bitter on my tongue, and let the pieces fall into place. I wasn't going back to that house. Not to beg or fight. I was done with that life. "I'm building something," I said, slow and sure. "Something new." He grunted, a half-smile tugging at his mouth. "About damn time." That day, I got to work. I drove downtown in my rattling sedan, the box-riding shotgun, and met with a realtor I'd found online. She was no nonsense, a woman named Linda, all sharp edges and quick questions. Within hours, I'd leased a penthouse. Top floor, big windows, a view of the city that made my old life look small. I didn't blink at the price. The black card in that box could handle it. Later that afternoon, I stood in the empty space. The hardwood floors gleaming, the skyline stretching out below. I felt my shoulders loosen. This was mine. Nobody else's. Next, I called Sahil. "Need an assistant," I told him. "Someone good. Full-time." He laughed, that same excited laugh from the bar all those years ago. "You're really doing this, huh?" I told Sahil. "I'll send you someone tomorrow." By the next day, I had Tessa, young, sharp, clipboard in hand, and a knack for keeping things moving. She didn't ask about my past, just nodded when I told her I was starting a venture capital firm. "What's the name?" she asked, pen poised. I stared out at the city for a moment. "Silverline Ventures," I said. "A new line, a new start." We set up shop fast, laptops, a desk, a phone line. I pulled more cash from my account, the one Corinne didn't know about. I'd been funneling money there for months, ever since I sold those shares. Now was the time to use it. I started scouting startups, small outfits like Sahil's had been, places with big ideas and no capital. I'd been on the other side once, begging for a chance. Now, I could give it. Silverline Ventures wasn't just a name. It was me, back in the game, stronger than before. Corinne and Margot didn't cross my mind much those first few days. I was too busy, too focused. Tessa handled the calls. I met with founders. Ronan dropped by with takeout, grumbling about the traffic but grinning when he saw the penthouse. "Not bad, kid," he said, clapping me on the shoulder. I was building in silence, brick by brick. It felt good. Damn good to be the one in control again. Then the letters started showing up. The first one came a week after the dinner, forwarded from the old address to Ronan's. Corinne's handwriting neat, slanted on a plain envelope. I didn't open it, just tossed it on the kitchen table and kept moving. Another came 2 days later. Then a third. Each one thicker, like she was pouring more words into them. I didn't read those either. Margot sent one too, her messy scrawl a shock after all her silence. But I left it unopened with the rest. My phone buzzed, sometimes her number, then Margot's. I let it go to voicemail. I didn't need to hear their voices yet. I knew what was coming. They'd figure it out soon, the money, the life I'd hidden, and they'd want back in. But I wasn't ready to let them. I stood on the penthouse balcony one night, the city lights twinkling below, a glass of whiskey in my hand. The air was cool. The world was quiet except for the hum of traffic far off. I thought about that dinner, Garrett's smug face, Corinne's laugh, Margot's smirk. They'd kicked me out, sure, but they'd also handed me something. A clean slate. A chance to rise without their weight dragging me down. I was back stronger, richer, sharper. And when they came knocking, I'd be the one deciding who got in. I was sitting at my new desk in the penthouse, papers spread out, Tessa typing away across the room. When I got the first hint, it was starting to unravel for them. My phone buzzed, not Corinne or Margot this time, but the bank. I'd pulled my name off the joint account the night before the anniversary dinner. A quiet move I'd made after seeing Garrett waltzing like he owned the place. The banker's voice was calm, professional. "Just confirming the mortgage payment bounced, sir. The account's overdrawn." I leaned back in my chair, a slow grin creeping across my face. "Not my problem anymore," I said. He paused, then said, "Understood," and hung up. I pictured Corinne standing in the kitchen, staring at a declined card, her perfect little world cracking. She'd always handled the bills, dipping into that account like it was bottomless, never asking where the money came from. Well, it was my money keeping it afloat, and now it was gone. A few days later, I got a call from a guy I knew at the car dealership. "Hey Tom, just a heads up, your wife's lease on that SUV, it's in your name, and she missed the payment. We're repossessing it tomorrow." I chuckled, sipping my coffee. "Go ahead," I said. "I'm not paying it." The car was hers in every way but the paperwork shiny black, the kind of thing she loved showing off. I could see her now, fuming as they towed it away. Margot whining about how she'd get to school. It wasn't spite, not really. It was just me stepping back, letting them feel the weight of their choices. The call started soon after. Corinne first, her voice loud through the voicemail. "You better help us, Tom. This is your mess too." I didn't pick up. Just let it play while I ate lunch, Ronan's leftover meatloaf. Still better than anything she'd cooked lately. Then Margot, her tone sharp but shaky. "Dad, what's going on? Mom's freaking out. Call me back." I didn't. The house, the car, the bills, they'd built their life on me. And now the foundation was gone. I kept working, meeting with startups, signing checks with that black card while their world fell apart. Word got around fast. A buddy from the old neighborhood texted me. "Saw Garrett peel out of your driveway last night. Looked pissed." I wasn't surprised. Sal had done some digging for me. Turns out Garrett's so-called successful life was a house of cards, bad investments, a failing side hustle he couldn't pay for. He'd been leaning on Corinne's stability, her house, her money, my money, to prop himself up. When the mortgage bounced and the car vanished, he bolted. I laughed out loud when I heard it, imagining her face when he walked out, leaving her with nothing but her pride. Margot started posting online vague, dramatic stuff like everything's falling apart and people suck. I saw it on my phone one night, scrolling while Tessa ordered takeout. The kid who'd smirked at me was crumbling. Part of me felt a pang. She was still my daughter. But it faded fast. She'd chosen her side. The calls changed after that. Corinne's voice softened, desperate now. "Please, Tom, just talk to me. We can figure this out." Then Margot's, quieter, almost scared. "Dad, I'm sorry. Can you call me?" I let them stack up a dozen voicemails. I didn't answer. They'd kicked me out, laughed me off, and now they were drowning. One night, I was on the balcony, the city humming below, a beer in my hand, when the phone rang again. "Corinne." I stared at it, the screen glowing in the dark, and something made me pick up. Her voice came through small and shaky. "Tom. Oh God, please don't hang up. I miss you. Can we meet?" I let the silence stretch, listening to her breathe, picturing her in that house empty now. No car. No Garrett. No money. "You threw away a diamond for costume jewelry," I said, my voice low, steady. She didn't say anything, just sniffled. And I hung up. That was it. No yelling, no begging, just the truth. I set the phone down, took a long sip of beer, and looked out at the lights. The fall had begun, and I didn't lift a finger to stop it. They'd made their bed. Let them lie in it. I'd warned them at the dinner quiet, almost under my breath, "You'll regret this." And now they did. The penthouse was warm behind me, Tessa's laugh drifting out as she talked to someone on the phone, and I felt solid, rooted. They'd lost everything, the house, the life, and I'd lost nothing that mattered. I was free, and they were stuck, scrambling for scraps I wouldn't give. The phone had stayed quiet after that last call. No more voicemails. No desperate pleading. They'd gotten the message. I wasn't their lifeline anymore. I was pushing a cart through the supermarket, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, when I saw her, Margot. She was standing by the discount bins, a bag of ramen noodles in her hand. It had been weeks since I told Corinne they'd thrown away a diamond. I hadn't expected to run into either of them. She looked different. Hair messy, pulled back in a sloppy ponytail. Her hoodie sagged off one shoulder. No trace of the polished teenager who'd smirked at me that night. Her cart held a few cheap items: soap, a loaf of bread, some canned stuff. I stopped. The wheels squeaked on the tile. She glanced up. Her eyes went wide like she'd seen a ghost. "Dad," she whispered, the ramen slipping a little in her grip. I didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, looking at her. Part of me wanted to walk away, to keep moving past the aisle like she wasn't there. But something held me back. "Hey," I said, my voice flat, not giving much away. She shifted, clutching the bag tighter, and took a step closer. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice small, almost lost in the hum of the store. I nodded, slow and careful, and pushed my cart to the side, leaning against it. "Go ahead," I said. She swallowed, looking down at her sneakers worn out, scuffed, and started talking. "Things are bad, Dad. Really bad. Mom's a mess. The house is gone. We're in some crappy apartment now." Her eyes flicked up, just once. "Garrett left. And she cries all the time." I listened, my arms crossed, keeping my face steady. I could picture Corinne unraveling without her perfect life. But I didn't feel the pull to fix it. Not anymore. Margot kept going, her words tumbling out. "I didn't know it'd get like this," Margot said, her voice shaking. I thought Mom was right. That you were just, I don't know, holding us back. But now everything's falling apart, and I don't know what to do." She looked up at me then. Her eyes were wet, pleading. "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't mean it." All that stuff I said. I took a deep breath. The air was cold from the freezers nearby, sharp in my lungs. I let her words settle. I'd waited for this, hadn't I? For them to see. To come crawling back. But hearing it didn't feel like a win. It just felt heavy. "You were a kid," I said, my voice low but firm. You followed her lead. I get that. But you stood there, Margot, while she kicked me out. You laughed with her. I watched her flinch, watched her shoulders fold inward. That's not something I can just forget. Her face crumpled a little, and she nodded, wiping her nose with her sleeve. I know, she said. I messed up. I miss you. I didn't realize how much until now. I looked at her. Really looked. And I saw the girl she used to be, my little shadow. The one who'd crawl into my lap with a book and beg for another story. But that girl was gone, buried under years of silence and choices, and siding with Corinne. Trust's a hard thing, I said. Once it's broken, it doesn't snap back together overnight. She nodded again, and this time the tears spilled down her cheeks. You hurt me, Margot, I said. Both of you did. I'm not saying never, but I'm not ready to pretend it didn't happen. Okay, she whispered, her voice barely audible. I just wanted you to know. I didn't hug her, didn't offer her promises I couldn't keep. I just gave her a small nod and said, take care of yourself. Then I pushed my cart past her. The rest of the shopping felt mechanical, my hands grabbing cereal, milk, a few things I didn't even remember tossing in. My mind churned the whole time. That night, after I'd put everything away and the penthouse had gone quiet, an email popped up. Subject, coffee? From Corinne. Tom. I was angry. I was stupid. Please, let's have coffee. I stared at it, watched the cursor blink in the reply window, and then I typed. The man you insulted is gone. The man you need now doesn't exist for you. I hit send, closed the laptop. She didn't reply, and I didn't expect her to. I sat on the penthouse couch, the city lights glowing through the windows, and thought about Margot's face, lost, scared, sorry. I'd meant what I said. Trust was a slow build, and they'd torched it. But she was my kid, and that tugged at me, even if I didn't want it to. I didn't know them anything, not after what they'd done. But I wasn't sure I could cut them off forever either. Not yet. I got up, poured a glass of water, and stood by the window watching the world move below. They were falling, and I was rising. And maybe someday, there'd be a middle ground. But for now, I let them sit with it, their choices, their regrets, while I kept building, step by step, on my own terms. A year later, I stood in the penthouse kitchen, the smell of grilled steak and garlic bread wafting through the air, the clink of glasses and laughter filling the space. It was a quiet dinner party, nothing flashy, just the people who'd stuck by me, the ones who mattered. Uncle Ronan was there, leaning back in a chair with a beer, his gruff voice cutting through the chatter as he launched into one of his old fishing stories. So I'm out on the lake, right? Sun's barely up, fog so thick I can't see past my nose. Oh, here we go again, Tessa teased from across the room, rolling her eyes but smiling. And I feel this tug, Ronan went on, undeterred, gesturing with his bottle. Thought it was a snag. Turned out to be the fattest bass I ever pulled in. Damn thing nearly dragged me off the boat. Sahil sat across from him, grinning, his tie loosened after a long day. He lifted his glass toward me. To the man who bet on me when nobody else did, he said. And now look where we are. I raised my glass back, the warmth of the wine settling in my chest. To all of you, I said. I wouldn't be here without this crew. Tessa was laughing with the small team I'd built at Silverline Ventures, good people, sharp and loyal. They'd helped turn my little firm into something real, something solid. And then there was Nina, sitting next to me. Her dark hair caught the light, her laugh soft but bright. I'd met her a few months back at a business conference. Smart, steady. She had a way of seeing through people that reminded me of Ronan. She wasn't pushy, didn't need anything from me. She just showed up with her dry humor and kind eyes, and somehow, she'd become part of this new life. We'd been taking it slow, no labels, just dinners, late-night talks. But having her here tonight felt right. Easy. The table was crowded with plate steak, potatoes. A big salad Ronan insisted on making took up the middle of the table, overflowing. Chaotic, full of things that didn't seem like they should go together, but somehow worked. Just like this night. The city lights twinkled outside, framing us like a picture I never thought I'd have. I looked around, soaking it in, letting it settle into me, the warmth, the laughter, the ease. And it hit me. Corinne and Margot hadn't crossed my mind all night. They were ghosts now, shadows from a life I'd left behind. After that supermarket run-in with Margot, after Corinne's email that I never answered, they faded. No more calls. No letters. Just silence. I heard through the grapevine they'd moved somewhere cheaper. That Corinne had taken some entry-level job. That Margot was scraping by at community college. I didn't check. I didn't dig. They weren't my story anymore. We finished eating, and I stepped out onto the balcony, the cool air brushing my face. A glass of whiskey in my hand. Nina followed a minute later, leaning on the railing beside me, her shoulder close to mine but not touching. Nice night, she said, her voice easy. Yeah, I nodded, staring at the skyline. Feels good. She didn't ask about the past. She never did. but I could tell she knew there was weight behind my quiet. Some days it pressed down more than others. But not tonight. Inside, I could hear Ronan's rough laugh, Sahil's voice rising over it, and I smiled to myself. This was my family now. Not blood, not obligation. Choice. I set the glass down and pulled the little box from my pocket. The same one from that anniversary dinner, the one Corinne had shoved aside like it meant nothing. I kept it. Not for them. For me. I flipped it open, the black card still glinting. Slid the paper out, blank and waiting. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a pen, uncapped it, and on a scrap of paper I wrote, "To the man I used to be, thank you for surviving." I folded it, slipped it into the box, closed the lid, and I felt lighter than I had in years. Nina glanced over, her eyes curious but never prying. "What's that?" she asked, her tone soft. "Just a note," I said, sliding the box back into my pocket. "Saying goodbye to some old stuff." She nodded like she understood. "That's good," she said. "That's real good." We stood there, side by side, the city humming below us, the stars faint above. I thought about that night a year ago, Corinne's sneer, Margot's smirk, Garrett's smug grin, and how they'd pushed me here. They'd meant to break me, to toss me out like trash. But instead, they'd handed me a way out. And I'd taken it. Quietly, deliberately, step by step. And now, I was standing taller than ever. The dinner party wound down slow, in that easy, contented way good nights do. Ronan clapped me on the back as he headed out, his laugh still echoing in the hallway. "You done good, kid," he said, and I nodded, not needing more. Sahil grabbed his coat, already pulling out his phone. "I'll call you Monday," he said. "Got something brewing I think you'll like." "I'm listening," I told him, and he winked as he slipped out. Tessa hugged me quick before she left, her energy still buzzing. "Proud of you, boss," she whispered, and I smiled. That word boss didn't sting like it used to. I'd earned it. Only Nina stayed, wordless at first, helping me stack plates, wipe down counters. Her presence steady, calm, like she belonged in the silence. "Good crew," she said eventually, drying a glass with a dish towel. I looked at her, at the way the light hit her cheek, the way she didn't rush the quiet. "The best," I said. After she left, I stood alone on the balcony again. The hum of the city below felt like mine now, like something I claimed, not just endured. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the box again, its weight familiar in my hand. I looked at it, really looked, and then set it gently on the ledge. It wasn't about them anymore. Not Corinne. Not Margot. Not the betrayal that used to rot in my chest like old smoke. It was about me. The man I'd become. The one who'd walked through fire and didn't just survive, he built something. I raised my glass, the whiskey catching the city lights, and toasted the air, the skyline, the future, and let the past slip away for good. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.